the knowing that we're learning to relinquish or give up in meditation practice, I think you could simply boil it down to two fundamental components, what we would call interpreting and evaluating. So if you look at how our mind functions through, in life, how the knowing that we're doing all the time is that we're trying to understand the world. We're trying to interpret what's happening. Someone says something to us or some event happens and we're trying to interpret it. What does it mean? What does it mean? And then we're evaluating constantly as well, which means we're judging whether something is good, bad, neutral. There's this evaluative kind of critical function going on. And when we go into meditation, we find these two things are still going on a lot for most of us. If we're sitting in meditation, like this last module where we're just letting things be. So we're just letting things be, and then we feel some very positive feelings well up. And we kind of think, oh, what does it mean? It must mean I'm doing it right. It must mean, maybe I'm becoming enlightened right now, or maybe I'm about to, have a really deep enlightenment experience because I'm feeling this bliss. What does it mean? What does it mean? So we're making meaning out of the experience we're having. And then similarly, we're evaluating it. We're saying, well, this is really good. It's good that I'm having this. I want more of this. This is the right direction. And, similarly, if we're having, a challenging or, experience that's emotionally uncomfortable, we might be, wondering, well, what does that mean? Why am I feeling tense? I must not be doing the meditation, or I must have resistance, or I must, maybe the meditation isn't good, or I'm not doing it right, or we're trying to make meaning out of it. And then we're also evaluating it as bad and something that is probably an obstacle and needs to go away. And the radical invitation of this practice, of this whole module, is what would it be to sit in meditation and completely relinquish any attempt to interpret or evaluate what's happening? To simply let your meditation unfold with no attempt to know, no attempt to figure anything out, no attempt to know whether it's good or bad, what's happening. To really step beyond that whole mechanism. And it's worth just noting here briefly that we're not advocating that you give up meaning making and evaluation in daily life. It's not, because some people get immediately confused and they think, well, are you just saying you're saying there is no good and bad and nothing means anything. And, certain spiritual and personal growth teachings have sort of taken this meditative insight of not knowing, and they've tried to turn that into a life practice and said, oh, that means that we don't ever and can't ever know anything, and there is no meaning except the meaning we impose on things. So we should give up all meaning making. And similarly, a lot of teachings have said we should, there is no good or bad. And so let's give up judging things as good or bad. And, just try doing that for a day and watch how your life gets very confusing and dysfunctional. It's like we have to be able to discern, value, relative things that are relatively better versus things that are relatively worse all day long in life to be able to navigate life. And we have to be able to make meaning to understand even what someone else is trying to say to us and how to respond to a challenging situation. So the point of, doing this is to do it wholeheartedly in meditation. And the radical possibility that opens is that we liberate ourselves from the need to know, from the need to have certainty, and the need to impose meaning on things and the need to impose a judgment on everything, which is then going to, in life, if we really break the cycle, if we really break through that compulsive emotional need to know, is that we will be able to see things much more clearly and respond with much greater accuracy. So it's really the radical wisdom and insight that it makes possible and the whole different way of being that this opens the door to. So, and the second thing I'll try to say briefly is just that not knowing doesn't mean there aren't thoughts. And this is an area that's often very confusing for spiritual practitioners. Many of us have been trained to believe that thought is the obstacle. And we sit in meditation and we're very pleased when there aren't thoughts for a little while. And then when thoughts come back, we think, uh-oh, that's me trying to know something. So it's important to just, and we'll mostly just explore this in practice, but it's important to realize that thought itself is not what we don't mean. That's not what we mean by this need to know. It's not what we mean by knowing. Thoughts can arise in your practice. Thoughts can arise all the time. And this is really about transforming our relationship to the thought process. So your mind might still be desperately trying to know. It might be trying to find meaning. It might be trying to judge everything and evaluate everything. That might happen. And this is really about what do you do when that impulse to know arises? Do you engage it? Do you then try to figure something out? Do you get involved in trying to solve a problem or figure out what's happening or, make meaning, judge as good or bad? Do you get involved in that, or do you just let that mechanical mental process happen without any engagement from you because you don't need to know? So you don't care that it's going on. This is really the meditative radical posture. I don't need to know. Sure, there's the mind trying to tell me that I'm doing it wrong or that I'm doing it right, trying to tell me that this experience is perfect or this experience isn't the right one. There goes the mind doing that. But I don't need to know. I don't need to get involved in that. I'm free of that. And so we don't. And so we just keep letting it happen and we are not participating.